Oh, it's Terrier, and today I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to overhaul the top half of this CZ engine. So as you can see, I've taken the cylinder off, taken the head off, and the first thing that you notice, well at least I do anyway, is the top of the piston. So if I just turn the engine round, if you look at the top of this piston, the crown, the bottom half is all coked up. You can see it's very dark, and then the top half is very light. There's no carbon there whatsoever. Now the reason for this is because this is where the fuel and air mixture is transferred from the crankcase through the transfer ports. If I just get the cylinder. Now here's the transfer ports there, just one each side. So it comes from the crankcase through the ports and over the top of the piston, and as the piston comes up it compresses and combusts, so it'll always be clear there if the engine's been running properly. So obviously the ignition timing is right, it's been running right, the fuel and air mixture is correct, so that's a good sign. And because it's clear at the top, I can see the piston itself, the crown itself. There's been no previous damage to it whatsoever, so that's a good sign. So if I just have a look at the cylinder head inside to inspect it for damage. So what I've done, I've cleaned the carbon out of the cylinder head, polished it up, and there's no signs in there whatsoever of any previous damage, so that's a real good sign. Now looking at the cylinder, what I'm looking for in here is wear in the top of the cylinder. Now if you look on this piston, there's 3 piston rings, and these are the piston rings there. So the top ring then that goes in this groove, the top one, it comes about, I would say about 4 or 5 mil or so from the top of the cylinder. So the wear then, if there's any wear in here, you'll feel a groove inside this cylinder about 4 or 5 mil from the top, and there's no groove in there whatsoever. Well, that's brilliant, but it does look really glazed up, the cylinder, so that's going to need honing out. Now the reason why we have to hone the bores or deglaze them is so that the piston rings can bed in. Now if you get new piston rings and you don't hone the bore out, they just can't bed in. In other words, when you get a new ring like this, as it's fully expanded, it's not a perfect circle, and the cylinder is. Even when compressed, when it's on the piston and in the cylinder, it's not a perfect circle. So what takes place then is you hone the bore, and it's allowed to wear for the first 500,000 miles, so that it can wear any tight spots, high spots, so it becomes a perfect circle, the ring does, all 3 of them. And at that point, when the rings have worn in and it's all sealed in correctly, then it's running. But it does look rather glazed up, and yet the rings look fairly new. So what we're going to do now then is we're going to have a look down the top. I'm going to get the camera now and we'll have a look down into the crankcase itself. Right then, we'll have a look into the crankcase. Now I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this, but we'll have a look anyway. And there you can see, good view of the top of the piston crown there, that flow area. So we look in the crankcase, and it really is clean inside, it's absolutely spotless. Not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod and check for some ply in the big end and that, but it really is spotless inside, and the bearing feels really nice and free. But I'll put it on the tripod and we'll have a look. Right, so the best way to check the big end then and the small end for play is if you grab the piston firmly, and then the palm of your hand, if you put that on the studding, and then you pull up onto the piston and down, up, and then push it down. Now if there's any play there, you'll hear a clunking, and that feels really good, that feels fine. And now side to side movement on the piston, that's normal, that's the end flows, and you can actually feel the small end bearing, that it's just a real nice fit. There's no plane there, so that's brilliant. So what I'm going to do now, before I hand the bore out, I'm going to put the piston rings on, and the best way I find to put them on is from the side like this, so the piston don't move back and forth. So grab the back there and just spring it straight over, like so. First groove, second groove, and then what we'll do, bring it down to the last one, like so. So they can be a bit tricky, because you've got to be careful that you don't snap them. Right, so let's put the second one on there, straight over. So it's best to just expand them at the gap, and then just bring it over if you can, like that. And then we'll put the last one on, straight over. The top one's always the easiest, and we'll locate them in the correct pins before we put the cylinder on. So we're going to hand the bore out now. Right, so I've put some paraffin and oil on the hone then, and what we're going to do is put it inside, and we're going to do it at a low speed, start turning it. Right, so I've finished the honing then, and I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see the bore in this, but it's just deglazed just nicely, leaving no marks in there, no lines or anything like that. So we can continue now and rebuild it.